Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for coming today. It's lovely to have you here at Lollipop Farm with me. My name is Noah Engel. I am the Legacy Gifts and Stewardship Specialist here at Lollipop Farm, alongside my manager, Brooke, who you've seen around, Brooke Bensley. She is the manager of Legacy Giving as well. And I am very fortunate today to have two special guests from ESL Trust Services here alongside to talk to you today to discuss charitable trust strategies with you and how they can help balance your financial needs and support your long-term philanthropic goals, including support for Lollipop Farm. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Susan Herendine and Ben Casilio from ESL Trust Services. Susan?
Thank you. Thank you very much. I am Susan Herendine, and you can see I live in Palmyra with my family. This is our dog, Sasha Margaret Herendine. My daughter gave her a middle name because I used her middle name so much when she was a child that she thought the dog deserved a middle name as well. So this is our rescue dog. She's 13 years old. And I am the managing director, and I have about 25 years experience. I'm going to cap it at 25 years experience in financial services. And what that is that's financial planning, that is trust and estate work, that is investment work. So I have spent my entire career in that field.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ben Casilio. I am, those are my two dogs over there. Clover and Finn, they're both rescue dogs. And Clover is the dark and black and white one. We think she's about 14 years old, and Finn is about 7 years old. So very different temperaments from each other, but they balance each other out pretty well. So I am an attorney by trade, and I practiced trust and estates law here locally for a number of years. And I now work at ESL Trust Services as a senior fiduciary officer, essentially managing and administering trusts and estates. So, yeah. And I also live about 12 minutes away myself with my wife and two human kids, Charlie and Theo.
Perfect. Well, thank you. So today, really, the theme of this presentation was protect what matters. And today we're going to talk about what that means. Lots of things matter to a lot of us. Family, friends, our purpose in life, our finances, making sure that we are sustainable going forward. There are lots of things that are meaningful to us that we want to protect as we age and even after we are not here. So today we are going to talk about a very specific charitable trusts. But again, we just kind of wanted to talk open and an overview about different ways you can give to Lollipop Farm. One of them is through lifetime giving. Now that can be through money, that can be through time, that can be through talent. So there's lots of different ways in which you can give during your lifetime to Lollipop. You can leave that in your will. That is a very common way for people to leave assets to Lollipop Farm, is through their will. In your will, you can say, I'm going to leave X number of dollars. I want to leave X percentage that goes through probate. I want to leave whatever that is. A little bit later on, we're going to talk about how you can leave it and in what capacity you're going to leave it to Lollipop Farm. But a will is a great way to go ahead and leave assets to Lollipop Farm. Beneficiary designation. I think most of us would think of a beneficiary designation as a 401k or an IRA in which you would leave assets to your children, your spouse. Lollipop Farm as an entity. There are tax implications around leaving it to Lollipop versus your children or a spouse. We're not going to get into that today, but beneficiary designation is a great way to leave assets to Lollipop Farm as well. You can add that onto checking and savings accounts, insurance policy. All of those are considered a beneficiary designation in which you're going to leave assets to someone else, an entity or an individual from that piece of it. Today we're going to talk about charitable trusts and how leaving assets to Lollipop Farm through a charitable trust is a benefit to you, and it is a benefit to Lollipop Farm itself. So again, if we look about what matters to you and what matters to Lollipop and the purpose that you have, combining all of that together so it's mutually beneficial is really what we're going to dive into today when it comes to our presentation. How does a charitable trust, why, really, why would we create a charitable trust? Why would we do this? There's several reasons. One, to support Lollipop. Charitable trust, charity is in the name, it's in the title. So a charity does need to be involved. So that is really the forefront of why we would have a charitable trust. You would use this to support Lollipop, and it would be a designated gift that you would be saying, this is what I'm going to give. It would be a mission alignment. So you want to support Lollipop, you find that that is a part of what matters to you. Lollipop is very grateful, but also you have needs as an individual. So you may need income, you might need income for children or other individuals in your family. You still have to make sure that you financially are stable. So a charitable trust is kind of the best of both worlds. You get to leave money to Lollipop, and either at the beginning or the end, there will be resources for your family or yourself going forward. And then the financial benefits. We're going to get into those a little bit further on, but really those financial benefits are for yourself as the donor, the person who puts the assets in, and it's also a financial benefit for Lollipop because they will get assets either today or at your passing or at another point in time for that piece of it. So there is a combination here. So we're taking a purpose of what really matters and we're kind of combining them together into one tool so that we can also make sure that your wishes are fulfilled in the best way possible. So a charitable trust is a contract. So anytime you hear the word trust, think of it as a contract. You're creating a contract. And every contract has people who sign the contract, right? You have people that sign it. The two people that sign a contract are the donor and the trustee. So that's the person who puts the money in, and the trustee is the doer, right? So if you have a trust, you think of it as a contract, regardless of it's charitable or not. The donor is the person who puts the money in, and the trustee is the person who does all the doing. In normal trust world, that can be the same person. With a charitable trust, they're going to be separate. So the donor is the person who puts the money in. They could still receive a benefit, but they're the person who puts the cash in or securities in. The trustee is the person who manages the investments. They make sure that payments go out at appropriate times. They make sure tax returns are filed. They're the people that actually are doing all of the work behind it.
And they invest the money as well.
Correct.
They invest the assets.
They do invest the assets. And Ben is going to talk a little bit about the beneficiaries of a charitable trust.
Sure. So the nice part about a trust is it's really a flexible agreement that fits what you need and what you want. So, the with a charitable trust, there's always going to be a charity as a beneficiary, but there will be other beneficiaries as well, and it can either be you, a spouse, a family member, like children, or it can be a friend. And so let's talk about you as a beneficiary. We'll get into the details later, but you can have a trust that's set up where you have an asset that's put into the trust that's used to generate an income stream for you during your life or for a set term of years, whatever you wish it to be. And then at the end of the day, the remainder amount is paid out to the charitable beneficiary. And we'll get into that later, but just be aware, the benefit of a trust, rather than simply leaving it in your will to a charity, is that you get an income stream during your life, and the charity still gets the gift at the end of the day. So we'll start out with the two types of charitable trusts, and they're really inverse of each other. A charitable remainder trust is such that the charity is the remainder person. So that means then that you or your loved one gets the income stream during the time period of the trust. And again, it's so flexible in that you can set a term of years or just have it be for the rest of your life. A charitable lead trust is the opposite. The charity is the leading beneficiary, where it gets money during a set term of years, and then the remainder amount is paid out to whoever you want it to be. a non-charitable entity. So it can go to a spouse, it can go to family, friends, anybody that you want it to be. Our focus today is mostly going to be on charitable remainder trusts, and there's a couple of reasons for that. One of them is a technical reason. In higher interest rate environments, charitable remainder trusts are more beneficial. And there's also some other tax breaks that you can get with charitable remainder trusts that aren't existent with charitable lead trusts. We're going to jump here to the sort of gifts that go to charity, and whether they're restrictive or unrestrictive gifts. So whatever portion is charitable, whether it's the end remainder interest or the income interest, depending on which trust you choose, you can set how the charity can use it if you wish. And a lot of people say, oh, I love this program that the charity offers. I'm going to say that the gift should be used for this specific program. But we all trust Lollipop and love Lollipop, and Lollipop's always coming up with new ideas for how to help animals. And so the risk of restricting the gift is they say, geez, we've got this wonderful idea, but we can't use these gifts because, of course, people didn't anticipate that they would come up with this future program, right? And so that's the benefit of an unrestricted gift, is it allows Lollipop to say, oh, we've got a great program coming up. Here's where we're going to use this gift.
And restricted and unrestricted gifts are similar. However, you want to go ahead and give the gift, whether it's through your will or if it's through a trust. So you can actually restrict or unrestrict those gifts in either way from that point.
So, as we know, if you give a gift to Lollipop, Lollipop benefits from that gift, but the benefit involves you too. Obviously, you give a gift to Lollipop, they've got future funding to use on programs for animals, but it also deepens your relationship with Lollipop too. Lollipop will include you in discussions as to how they're going to use the gift. They've got a legacy society where you'll be invited to events. It'll give you an opportunity to deepen relationships with family members too. When you talk about, if you put your gift to them in a trust, where your family and friends might be interested in hearing about that trust and how it benefits Lollipop. And it allows, obviously, Lollipop to be consistent with its mission. Lollipop is obviously dependent on people like you to give it money so it can continue to help animals. So this page here is going to be a little bit more technical, because you might be asking yourself, geez, why would I be interested in a trust when I can simply leave the money outright? And there's reasons why, and that's what we'll go over here. But it gets a little bit technical, so if you want to take notes or even interrupt me in the middle and ask questions, I'm happy to do so. So let's talk first about the bottom right box, income stream. We already talked about the fact that if you put money in a charitable trust, there's an income stream that you can get for either a term of years or the remainder of your life. And so the way this works, let's say you've got an appreciated asset. So you've got some stock that you don't want to sell because there would be a lot of capital gains involved. And it's not really doing anything for you. It's not producing an income stream for you. What you could do is give it to a trust, and that trust could then sell those assets without accruing capital gains. And the reason why is because it's a charitable trust. The remainder beneficiary of this charitable remainder trust is, for instance, Lollipop. So you've got that charitable benefit. So let's say your stock is worth $1 million. You give it to the trust, and had you sold that on your own, there would have been, let's say, $300,000 in capital gains. It would have eaten out a ton of that money, but it doesn't here. You've got the full $1 million in the trust that can invest in assets that that will benefit both you and Lollipop. So let's talk about how that income stream could look. Let's say you want to have it for the entirety of your life, which is perfectly reasonable. And it can look like an annuity, a fixed annuity, let's say 4%. So let's say that $1 million is now being invested and you have a 4% annuity paying out to you each year $40,000. And that's calculated at the inception, at the beginning of the trust. So that $40,000 is going to remain static even if the market drops. Now, most of us are aware that lately the market has risen over the past almost 20 years. Essentially, since 2009, it's been going up and up and up. So, you may have an interest in me catching up with inflation, having your payment catch up with inflation. And so that's where you can use what's called a unit trust amount. So let's say that same $1 million is instead paying out at a 5% unit trust amount. What does unit trust mean? Unit trust means that every year, at the beginning of the year, whatever the value of the trust is, it pays out 5% of that. So hypothetically, after 5 years, just for ease of reference, that $1 million is now $2 million. It's paying out 5%. You do a calculation, or rather, I say we, or whoever you name as trustee, calculates what 5% is. That $2 million, 5% is $100,000. It pays out $100,000 to you that year. So, we know what the past has shown, that the unit trust amount is better, but you may be risk averse, or you may simply want consistency. And so you could go with the annuity amount, the fixed rate, which is the same every year, right? And it doesn't carry the risk of the market in determining what's paid out. So that's the income stream. We touched on the capital gains piece, which is really a wonderful piece of it, because the charity, like I said, the charitable trust doesn't have to pay capital gains when it sells those assets. So it can invest in a more diverse set of assets, set of investments, and without having to pay those capital gains. And it can benefit both you and the charity. And what has happened and could happen again is when you put highly appreciated assets into a charitable trust, you can actually get more money out than you would have had you just simply sold those assets, not given any money to charity, and just taken them as income over the course of years. So it really is a wonderful benefit. There's another benefit. It's called an income tax deduction in the year that you fund the trust. And so I ran a calculation here. If you were to, right now, today, fund a charitable remainder trust with $1 million for a term of 20 years, and we're just going off a hypothetical here, receiving a 5% unit trust amount for those 20 years. So beginning unit trust amount, $50,000 for this year. You'd get an additional benefit, calculated at today's rate, of $130,000 about in income tax deduction for the 2026 calendar year. And so that rate is dependent on interest rates. And so it can get complicated. And I guess the uncomplicated part about it is that's a today value. It can change in the future, but there will always be an income tax deduction. And the reason why is because the charitable remainderman is a charity. The remainderman is a charity. It's Lollipop. So you get a charitable income tax deduction, even though you're still benefiting with this trust, receiving an income stream throughout this period of time. So it's really so beneficial. And then you have an estate tax break as well. And so some of you may be familiar with the fact that there's two separate sorts of taxes. One that everybody knows is income tax, and the other is estate tax. New York has a more restrictive estate tax than the federal government for a number of reasons. One of them is once you hit it, if you go over by just 5%, you get hit with what's called the New York estate tax cliff. And a bunch of money gets paid to New York State in the form of estate tax. And what you could do instead is have that money go where you want it to go, which, for instance, could be a charity like Lollipop. But anyway, let's get back to the actual benefit here. You have an estate tax break because you're giving money out of your taxable estate to a charity. And so New York says, well, that money isn't taxable, and so you've reduced your estate tax amount by X dollars by making this gift. And so when it comes to it, we're talking about a lot of benefits for creating a trust. And it's a bit overwhelming when you start talking about it and listening to me talk about it. The good news is that if you're with a good attorney, they can set this up for you without you doing much heavy lifting at all. And they can set up the incomes. They can set it up the income stream how you want it, whether it's an annuity amount, a unit trust amount, and they can have it paid out how you like. There's so much flexibility. We are happy to provide attorney recommendations as well for ones that we know can handle this type of work if you're interested.
So this really is just a recap of everything we have talked about so far today. So we're just going to kind of put it all together and put it into an example. As Ben talked about, a charitable remainder trust. The donor, that is you, and I'm going to use me as the example. So I am the donor. I create a charitable remainder trust. I worked for a bank previously, and I've got company stock. That company stock has appreciated greatly. So therefore, I can go ahead and take that company stock that I had collected when I was an employee at a very low cost basis, and then I can go ahead and I can put that stock into a charitable trust. It's not my only assets. That's not really what we're looking for to do with a charitable trust. It is a part of your assets that you want to carve out and leave to a charity. But there are reasons why those are the assets that I'm going to put into this charitable trust, right? So I've got all of my assets, and I'm going to carve out a certain piece of those that end up in that charitable trust. So I'm going to take my highly appreciated stock from the bank that I used to work for, and I'm going to put those in there. I'm going to receive income. Well, I don't really need the income, right? It's not something that I want. I don't really need it. I could take it, but I could also leave it to my children. I could also say, hey, guess what, kids, instead of giving you a gift every year at the holidays or whatever, you are going to receive quarterly payments from the charitable trust. That's going to last a certain number of years or until I pass. So the kids are going to get a benefit. Anybody could get a benefit, right? So I could leave it to my siblings, I could leave it to my kids, I could take it as well. At my passing, the income stream stops to the children, right? My kids are bummed at that point in time, right? They're like, oh, no more money from this account. But guess what? I didn't put all my resources, all of my assets into my charitable trust. My kids are taken care of. There's other assets for them to inherit at that point in time. So they're going to go ahead and inherit the rest of my estate. The income stream that they were used to getting stops. And now that money that is left over in that account shifts and it goes over to Lollipop. So it really does make a situation in which you have some appreciated assets, some assets that you know you want to give to charity because it's just really important to you and it's the purpose that you really want to fulfill. There are a lot of different ways. This is just one example of making sure that we carve out the right assets, set them up, make sure the income goes to somebody that you want it to go to, and then at your passing, in our example here, my kids will get the rest of the estate. At the time of my passing, again, everything that's left will then transfer over to Lollipop. And it's a very clean system, and it's a very concise system. Lollipop knows ahead of time what exactly that gift is going to look like. But again, this is just one example of how a charitable trust works. We talked about charitable lead, we talked about charitable remainder. So there are lots of ways that you can structure these. This is just the most common way that we see a charitable remainder trust being put together for that piece. Again, the outcome is the donor benefits are there and the charity benefits are there as well. Yes?
So if I understand, as the donor, that it was listed as immediate income tax benefit. It's actually every year that initial contribution is not taxed, but the beneficiary income is taxable income? Whoever goes to-
Let me address your last point. That, yes, whoever receives the income, there is an income tax there. So for your kids, yeah. But then is there an income tax deduction every year? No, it's just the first year. Just the first year where there's an income tax deduction.
Correct.
Yes.
Right. You
Yes.
can make additional contributions
That's true.
in other years, and then at any time money goes into a charitable trust,
It's a one-time.
you get the tax deduction at that point in time. Right, yeah. So we have individuals who's created the trust, they get their taxes done, and the attorney is like, or the CPA is like, guess what? It's time to make a charitable contribution to help with your taxes.
Just
right?
a quick point on that.
Yeah.
So when additional contributions are at issue for a charitable remainder trust, the rule is that it can only be added to a charitable remainder unit trust, not the annuity trust. And so it's a little complicated, but honestly, the unit trust, excuse me, I say annuity, charitable remainder unit trust is the one you can add additional contributions to, and it has proven to be the better vehicle for the beneficiaries, the income stream beneficiaries, which, like Susan said, could be you. The only other comment I have is if you're leaving this income stream to your children, it doesn't necessarily have to be based on the remainder of your life. You can set it up for a term of years, which could be longer or shorter than the remainder of your life, but that's an option. There's a lot of flexibility. Yeah.
So I think the point we want to make is that there's a lot of choices. There's a lot of ways to structure a charitable trust. And it's going to be very specific to everybody's specific situation, right? It's going to be dependent on your assets, your tax, where you are when it comes to your taxable assets, your estate as a whole going forward. So there's a lot of differences when it comes to when and how you would set up a charitable trust. One of the things that we've not talked about today is, earlier slide we talked about the donor, myself, I put the money into the charitable trust. We've talked about the beneficiaries, the people who receive the money, either Lollipop, myself, family, but we didn't talk about the trustee or the person that does the doing. So the trustee, again, is a partner in the trust. You signed the agreement, you signed the contract, and they are responsible to do various jobs throughout the life of the trust itself. So when you talk about a trustee, there's a lot of things around the circle when it comes to the trustee. They have to manage assets. They need to be efficient. They need to be consistent. There's a lot of things that they need to do. I always say that a trustee needs to be able, willing, and capable. So they need to be able to do the job. They need to be willing to do the job, and they need to be capable of doing the job. So whenever you choose a trustee, and that goes for an executor as well, so whenever you choose a trustee, they need to have those three things. Two of the three really doesn't work out the best at the end of the day. So when it comes to a trustee, there's a lot of different things they need to do. For a charitable trust, the top banner is some specific things that the trustee needs to do during the life of a trust. So they need to distribute income. So Ben has talked about a couple of situations in which calculations need to be done. If the amount is going to change every year, those calculations need to be done, and they need to be done correctly, because we want everybody to get the full benefit from this trust. So make sure that the income gets distributed properly and at the right time and to the right people. Annual tax returns that need to be filed for the charitable trust as well. 1041s do need to be filed various different times, so we need to make sure those get filed. Invest the assets. Ben talked about investing assets, making sure that the assets are growing. We want to make sure that there is income for the beneficiaries, but we also want to make sure that the assets are growing. So we just don't want to leave it in cash, or we don't want to leave it in a CD. We want to make sure the assets are growing over time, especially if you're taking a percentage. And we want Lollipop to get as much as they possibly can at the end of the day. So making sure the investments are invested in a way that is for the current and future beneficiaries. We want to make sure that the final payment is distributed properly and accurately. Because we go to the next one, we have to file a final tax return and let the Attorney General know that money is going to a charity. So one of the things that the Attorney General looks at is to make sure that there wasn't a lot of fees charged to the account, and to make sure that everything was done properly, and to make sure that the charity is getting everything that they are supposed to be getting. So especially for a charitable trust, there are a lot of things that the trustee needs to do. Now, we're a corporate trustee. This is what we do for a living. So this is what we do. There are purple brochures associated with your folders there today. They talk about our services, acting as trustee and acting as executor. So we have the ability to act as this doer. You can also name individuals as well. It doesn't have to be a corporate trustee. You do have the ability to name individuals in that role as trustee. But again, I just want to make sure that you're naming somebody who is able, willing, and capable of acting in this role to make sure that everything is done correctly and properly for that piece. So at this point, we talked a lot about the benefits for you as the individual when it comes to a charitable trust. And Lollipop may, you could be asking yourself, well, how does Lollipop feel about us leaving money in this way? It's money that if it's a remainder trust, as our example, it's money they're going to be getting in the future. So it's not money that they're going to get today, it's money they receive in the future. It's not very different if you leave it in a will. That is money they would receive in the future. So this benefits you while also, at the end of the day, leaving assets to Lollipop Farm. So does it fit in their mission? Yes, 100%. It fits. They know these assets will be coming at some point in time, whether it's through a will or a trust. At the end of the day, the assets are going to sit with them for them to be able to utilize the programs that they have. Restrictions on gift. We've touched on this a little bit. Now, this goes for however you leave assets to Lollipop Farm, or any charity in general. So if you're going to leave assets, you can say, I want these dollars to be used for this program. Ben said this program doesn't exist anymore. The charity can't use it for anything else. I'm not on Lollipop's board, but I have been on boards of nonprofit entities in the Rochester area, and there are accounts that nonprofit organizations can't use because they are restricted assets. So somebody loved a program at an entity and said, this is what I want my money to go towards. Now that program name doesn't exist, they can't use those assets unless they would bring that entity back, bring that program back. And a lot of times it's just not worth it. They've moved on, they've changed their focus a little bit. So you really do need to make sure that if you're going to leave a gift to any charity, that you understand where that money is going. And then a Lollipop, they're going to be involved. So if you put money into a trust or you're going to be leaving it in a will, you're going to let them know. And Noah here in a minute is going to tell you all about the things that you get with that gift and letting them know that you're going to be there. But again, I'm just going to kind of touch about how you can leave gifts to charities, Lollipop included. Unrestricted support, as somebody who has sat in finance committee meetings, that's my favorite choice. Like, I'll just say it right now. Like, that can go towards capital improvement. So if somebody would have left an unrestricted gift to Lollipop, they would have the ability to use it for this expansion. Existing endowment. Charities have endowments, you can put it in there. There are rules associated with an endowment as to how and when money comes out, so you could contribute it to an existing endowment. Capital needs, I want my money to go for future growth. The capital project here is a perfect example of capital needs and how it would be used, or even a special new project. Some people want their name on a building. Talk to Noah, figure out how to get your name on a building, and you can go from there. But there are, like, these are the best ways to leave assets to a charity that will allow your funds to really be used in the future. Noah, you're up.
My part. Thank you, Susan. So when leaving a gift, a lollipop like this, Susan had mentioned the Legacy Society that we have, and that is kind of my forte, basically. That is my specialty. So with the trustees' help, maintain trust terms and donor intent restrictions, expected timing. We keep the donor and the family connected to Lollipop with our mission. So through the Legacy Society, me personally, I'll use me, but I am constantly trying to reach out to the Legacy Society to keep them updated and kind of in the loop, basically, so that, you know, they are making a huge difference with their giving now. A lot of our Legacy members are, you know, annual giving, they do monthly giving, and not only are they doing that, but they're going to be a huge benefit to us later. So we want them to be tapped into the process as, you know, things are updating, things happen, and we make decisions over here at Lollipop Farm, and we welcome you into the Legacy Society. Now, I always emphasize to some people that it is technically optional. You know, not everybody wants to come to an event or really needs all that, but I would say we have a lot of fun, I will say, and that's not just a biased opinion, but we do have many events throughout the year. We have our Legacy Luncheon that is annual. We have quarterly stewardship events. Just a couple weeks ago, actually, we had our Horsing Around Legacy Society event where we were joined by our equine team over at the equine barn in the horse arena that they have over there to learn all about the equine team, horses, and how and why they come to Lollipop Farm. And just kind of, we use it as an opportunity to let them in to the mission and highlight certain aspects or departments of Lollipop Farm that make us one big whole. Enroll any pets into the Pet Guardian program. Now, I would say this is how a lot of people come to find out actually about the Legacy Society. I know we are all, one thing that we all share in common here is our love for animals. I would assume so. And I was previously an adoption counselor before I was in my role now, and I have heard many, many times throughout my roles that people love animals and they love either the animals that they have or that they want to get, but they're very worried about what may happen to them down the line. You know, adopting a very young kitten or a puppy or something, or even just any animal. They're worried that maybe the cousins or somebody doesn't want to take the animal after the fact. Well, the Pet Guardian program kind of helps alleviate that worry and take that stress off of your shoulders. The Pet Guardian program, in short, we'll see how short I actually am, but basically fast tracks your pet into the shelter. So if you were to unfortunately pass away and let's say Fido, your dog, is still around, you would beforehand fill out an enrollment form that gets you and your pet enrolled in the Pet Guardian program. You're already a member of the Legacy Society, and this is a specific exclusive perk to Legacy Society members, but the Pet Guardian program will have you fill out a form, a profile on your pet. We've enrolled many different kinds of pets into the program. We have many farm animals in the program, of course, plenty of dogs and cats and the likes, but we want to know everything there is to know about your pet. If there are any little specifics, food that they do or don't like, things that they do or don't like, we want to know everything so that when they do come into the shelter, we can find them a new home and a new proper home that will love them and know them just the same as you did, basically. Like I said, it fast tracks them into the shelter. Our admissions process can admittedly take a while sometimes. It can be a bit of a wait list. It can take a minute to get them in here, but this gets them right into the shelter. It gets them veterinary care. We get them vetted. We make sure that they're up to snuff and that they're in good health. And if anything were to arise, we can treat them as needed. They get behavioral help. You know, if they're maybe a bit more shut down. I mean, I can speak for myself. My cats would probably not love to come back here, but we can give them some behavioral help and enrichment to make sure we can make their stay here as nice as possible. And beyond that, they can go into a foster care home as well in the interim between coming here and finding a new adoptive home. and we just ensure that the received gift is utilized with care and professionalism. We always try to emphasize to people that we're not just trying to get the most out of you. We want to know exactly what your intentions are, what matters to you the most, so that we can, make sure everything is realized in the way that you see fit. Since you are the one extending this gratitude or this generosity to us, we want to make sure that we do it as you see fit, basically. So those are just a few of the benefits to you guys for leaving such a wonderful gift to us.
Perfect.
Susan?
Thank you.
Yes.
So really, I just hope that today you have been able to see what a charitable trust is, how it works, the benefits to the donor, the benefits to the charity. There's a lot that goes into it. There's a lot of planning that goes into it. Because again, today we talked about a very specific situation. So planning for a charitable trust, it's something that you want to make sure that you have the right trust structure. You want to make sure that the assets that you're putting in are the most appropriate assets that you have to put in there. How the gifts will be used, but also how that income is going to be used, and then proper legal drafting and review. So Ben practiced trust and estate law for a long time and did some drafting. He doesn't do that anymore. So we do have attorneys on staff. However, we don't draft documents. We utilize the trust and estates attorneys in Rochester to draft the documents. If we are named as trustee in that document, we will go ahead and review it. And what we look for is how the administration is done. So the attorneys make sure that it's legally binding, that it's following all of your wishes, and that it's following New York state law. We look at it from the next phase. How is it going to be implemented? Do we have questions on your wishes? How is that document actually going to be used? So we do review any document in which we are named to make sure that if we have any questions, they do get answered at that point in time. So if you do have any questions on charitable trusts, please reach out to us. We can certainly put you in touch with an estate planning attorney if you do not have one today. If you don't have your estate paperwork up to date, that will be a part of the process as well. They will make sure that you have all of your healthcare proxies and you have a will and all of the other stuff that goes into your estate planning documents from that piece of it. So we're here to help and provide you with any guidance that we can at that point in time for that piece of it. So really thank you. And now if anybody has any questions relating to this presentation or any other part of acting as a trustee, executor, estate planning documents, please ask away.
So, as a parent, I can give a certain amount of money to my kids tax-free. Does that work with a trust also, that I can give that amount or more to them tax-free?
Do you want me to
So, yeah.
handle it? Sure.
Go.
So we're talking. So when you give money to a child, there's no income tax involved with gifts.
Right.
All right. So are we? But there's also estate tax questions that relate to gifts as well. There's a misconception with the annual gift exclusion too. So some people think I can give $15,000 a year to my child, and then if I give more than that, I have to pay tax on that. And I want to make sure I'm understanding your question, if that's what you're referring to, or.
Right. So my question is, if I give it to a charitable trust,
Sure.
would they have to pay tax on it versus if I gave it as an individual to my kids?
So your kids don't pay tax on the gift. It would be a taxable gift to you. So if you put money into the charitable trust, they're the beneficiaries. They would receive an income tax for the money that they receive, but it's not an estate gifting tax. So we're talking about lots of different types of taxes in this scenario, in transferring assets from one generation to the next. So you can gift, what's the gifting exclusion up to today? How many millions?
Oh yeah, so if we're talking about estate tax, we're talking about 15 million
Right.
federally,
Yes.
about 7 million in New York.
Right, so you can give that, right, like you can give that to the next generation and there's no estate tax to be paid. But if there are tools in which you have a trust or other things, the person receiving that income, there may be some income tax that comes to them, not estate tax. If I cleared that, yes.
If I wanted to use ESL as a trustee, do I need to be a member?
No. So the question is, if I want to use ESL Trust Services as a trustee, do you need to be an ESL member of the credit union? And the answer is no. So ESL Trust Services is a separate subsidiary from the credit union, and membership in the credit union does not have any implication on utilizing our services. And that goes for executor services as well.
So how do the executor services work?
So the question is, how do the executor services work? As we can act as a corporate trustee, we can also act as a corporate executor, which means we act as executor for your will. We do it all. So if you have a home, we secure the home. We hire people to come in and make sure that the house is secure. If locks need to be changed, we handle all of that. We deal with the attorney that drafted the will. We work with them to get the house sold, to have the beneficiaries paid out if there are specific gifts at the very beginning. I want to leave money to Lollipop. We make sure they get their money, and then the remainderment at that point in time, we make sure that those assets are done. And then we do make sure that tax returns are filed that need to be filed, because usually it's the person's last 1040 would need to be filed, and then if an estate tax return needs to be filed, we'll make sure that those tax returns are taken care of for that piece.
Can the executor create a trust?
So the question is, can an executor create a trust? And the answer is no. So as executor, we're not going to create a trust. You would do that in your will. That would be called a testamentary trust. And if you created the will in your trust, we would execute that. So we would follow your instructions and make sure that the trust was opened and funded, but we cannot create it. You have to make that decision ahead of time, and then we just follow the instructions.
Is there a minimum for a trust?
So for us to act as trustee, our minimum is $250,000 for us to act as a trustee in that situation, correct?
So how would you set up like an executor with ESL, for example?
So when you, the question is, how do you set up acting as executor? When you go to an estate planning attorney and you get your will done and your healthcare proxy and your living will and your power of attorney and all of the other documents, in the will, there will be a section that says, I name ESL Trust Services as my executor. So it's named in the document. So we can be named as executor, we can be named as successor after if the first person says no, or we could be named as joint, co. So
Beneficiary, designating the beneficiary would be like, how would that be done?
So you do that, and you do that with the attorney in the will. So one part of the will is going to say, I give ESL Trust Services the ability to execute this will. It's basically what it says. And then at the end of the will, you say, I want my money to go here.
And what are the average fees amount?
So that's New York State has a statute fee, and that's what we charge. So anybody who acts as executor, whether it's us or an individual, there's the same statute fee, and it's a sliding scale of a percentage of depending the assets that flow through the estate.
Does the will have to be created by an attorney?
Highly recommend.
Highly, highly recommend. Question is, doesn't the will have to be created by an attorney? In all, November, I'll be doing this for 30 years, right? So I've seen one instance in which will not signed in an attorney's office with witnesses was recognized, and that was the attorney had a draft of the changes the individual wanted to make. The individual had signed witnesses The attorney attested that they had an appointment on the books for this to happen. Like, there was, like, the attorney said, here, do all of these things. The guy did it. He happened to pass before he could get in for his appointment. Yeah. So I've seen it once. I don't know, have you ever seen it? Like a holographic or?
I've seen it, but that's what all the case law you learn about in law school is about, and it's just perilous.
Yeah.
Especially, it's just
They
perilous.
don't have to honor that it's not.
If it doesn't meet the letter of the law, it will not be, yeah, right. Wait, there are simple wills today. They are executed by attorneys, right? You know, there are sweetheart wills where you can leave money to your spouse, and a pour over will where you leave money to a trust. So there's lots of different types of wills.
New York State has a number of forms, wills and things. You have to have a lawyer do those?
The question is, New York State has a lot of different forms. Do you need an attorney to do them? I don't think you technically need an attorney to do them, but again, like a power of attorney form, that form has been updated the past 5 years. I think
That's
it was.
right.
I think it was updated.
It's updated so frequently because
Yeah.
there's abuse of powers of attorney.
Right, and if you don't initial in the right place or you don't sign in the right place, the form becomes invalid. So it really, I can't stress enough how important it is to have an attorney go through everything together. A lot of attorneys will charge a single fee to do it. You can have all of your estate planning documents done at once, and then you know you're set.
What happens if some documents are not accepted? Then what happens?
So it gets so the question is, what happens if some documents aren't accepted? And let's go with, let's say, a will. What happens if the will is deemed invalid is it goes through the laws of intestacy. And New York has guidelines, not guidelines, it has rules that it says this is what happens if you die without a will. It gets paid out to this person, and if that person doesn't exist, it gets paid out to this person. So I could go through the examples. The specifics. The first person is a spouse, but if you're not married, it's children, and then if it goes on. If you don't have children, then it's I believe parents. If you don't,
There is no family.
if you have no family, eventually it gets down to paying it directly to New York State, which
New York
is
State?
that's
Correct.
right.
You get all your money?
That's
Yes.
right.
Yeah.
And so that's the benefit of having a will, is you get to decide where your money goes. And so at the end of the day, if you want it to go to Lollipop instead of New York State, you simply say that in your will. And so technically, from a technical standpoint, an individual who's not an attorney can make sure that their will fit within the requirements of the law. I'll tell you that when you go to surrogates court, the courts are skeptical of these wills, and they look through them, make sure they're valid. The real answer, the real recommendation here is it's probably not worth your time to do it yourself. Going to see an attorney who can do your will, and not just your will, a power of attorney, a living will, a healthcare proxy. I know attorneys who are reputable who will do all that work for an individual for $500 to $700, and it's really worth it to make sure that it's done properly for that amount of money.
Yeah. And attorneys have to do all the research to make sure you have no descendants or siblings, and that money goes to the attorneys to do research to make sure there is no one to leave it to other than New York State.
Oh, so what Susan's
Yeah.
mentioning, if you die without a will,
Yes.
someone's going to be in charge of your estate and managing it, and they're going to get, through all that research and work they have to do, they're going to get a lot of it just from having to do that work. So it really, at the end of the day, that's just another reason why you want to deal with an attorney who can put the best plan for you into place and make sure it
Right. Yeah, and we're here to help that process. I mean, attorneys, they have a very specific job to do when you are dealing with your estate planning documents. We live on the other side of those estate planning documents. We're the ones that use them and implement them and work with them. So please just let us know if there's anything we can do and help with that process. Any other questions? Let's keep going. Yeah.
So you said that the way to fund trust would be through stocks or money, whatever. Can we put IRA assets into that?
So you can, under certain circumstances. It gets a little bit more complicated, and I would recommend that if that's an asset you want to put into a charitable remainder trust, that you speak with an attorney and an accountant about what those sort of intricacies might mean.
Yeah. So it gets real expensive to kind of take the asset and change social. You're changing the tax ID. So that is the part that the federal government really does not like, right? So you got to take it from your social security number and putting it into the tax ID of a trust. And the government looks at that as a, yes.
So I'll get into one facet here. You know, if you have a traditional 401k or IRA, I told you before, if you put an asset into a charitable remainder trust, it could avoid capital gains. Well, with an IRA, you do have to liquidate it first. So you're not getting that benefit of avoiding the capital gains.
Yeah.
Of course, that's traditional. Roth is different.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. But one of the things I'm going to kind of do a little bit of on with your IRA and leaving it to individuals. So today, I think most people know that the majority of our assets are in IRAs and 401ks and qualified accounts. So nothing we really talked about today is applicable to that. We are seeing more and more where people are leaving their IRAs to a trust at their passing. So what that means is that your largest asset IRA goes into a trust. We still have all the same disbursement rules. A trust, again, 5 to 10 years. If the beneficiary is disabled, you can stretch it out further, but there's rules around it. But the asset stays as an IRA inside the trust. It happens when somebody passes away, though. It does not happen during your lifetime. It happens at passing. So the IRA becomes an asset of the trust. Distributions from that IRA go up to the trust, and from there they go out to the beneficiaries. So if you have children, young children, that you do not want them to receive your entire IRA balance to do with as they please at a young age, this is a mechanism in which you would have control over young individuals getting control of that asset.
So would the 10-year rule still apply?
Correct. It does apply, but the money doesn't go out to the beneficiary. It goes to the trust, and then the trustee then has the ability to give or not give those assets. So the taxation piece is still there. You still have to take the money out. You may not be giving it to the child so they can do with it as they please. It would remain inside the trust.
Mm-hmm. So in either case, let's say upon your death you have an IRA, it becomes an inherited IRA. And it can either be for the benefit of a child, anyone you want really, or it can be for the benefit of a trust, in which case that 10-year rule still applies. The RMDs get paid into the trust, and then whatever you set as the trust terms, you say, I want income to be paid, that income the trust generates to be paid to my child, the trust would then do that. But you don't have to say that. You can say whatever you want to happen in the trust. Mm-hmm.
Totally off the topic of today, but we're there. No, that's why we're here. Yeah.
Can you set up multiple charities in a charitable trust?
You can.
Mm-hmm. Correct. Yep. Yes. The question was, can you set up multiple charities within a charitable trust? And the answer is yes. Yep.
But Lollipop's the best one.
Question about the pet guardian program.
Yeah.
How do you set that up, and what are the requirements to set that up?
So I'd say pretty much the only requirement, maybe move towards the camera. I'd say pretty much the only requirement for the Pet Guardian program is to be a Legacy Society member already. So once we've talked about the gift and you've disclosed the gift that you're making, we've had you fill out the Legacy Society enrollment form, which just gives us the information on you and any information you're willing to share about the gift itself and any, let's say, like pertinent pages in your will related to the gift that you're willing to share with us. From that point on, you're ready to go for the Pet Guardian program. And to get involved with the Pet Guardian program, I'll go back to saying Fido from earlier. If you've got your dog and you say, I want to get him enrolled, I would send over the enrollment form and the profile to you. So you'd fill that out, fill out the profile with all the nitty-gritty details and everything in there. And you'd provide a photo of the animal as well. And then I take care of everything else on the back end. I'll take care of all the stuff within our system and within our files and our paperwork and all that sort of stuff. That'll all get taken care of by me. And then we will send you a confirmation letter, confirmation sort of package basically saying that you're enrolled. You'll receive typically you'll receive these little Pet Guardian tags that you can put on like the collar, for dogs. Not too many people got them on the cats, I'll say. But some tags and some estate documents that show that they are enrolled and that there is a plan set up in place with Lollipop Farm, basically.
And what's the requirement to enroll in the Legacy?
The question was, what is the requirement to enroll in the Legacy? Like a threshold for like what to leave, basically?
How do you,
How do you get in?
how do you get in?
Basically. It's very exclusive. No. To get into the Legacy Society is basically getting in contact with me. You'll take care of everything else with like your attorney and anything else like on that side of things. I don't oversee any of that sort of things, but once you've gotten all of that taken care of and that is all said and done in your will or your, anything like that, you'll contact me and then I'll send you over the proper enrollment form and then you get that back to me at your leisure, at your convenience. And then once that's back to me, same thing, I'll take care of it on my end, get everything squared away in the system, and we'll code you as a Legacy Society member. And then from there on, you'll start receiving mailings, invitations, all the fun stuff, basically.
Is there a minimum somebody has to leave?
Is there a minimum? No, there is no minimum.
So I could just start out by making Lollipop a beneficiary.
Yes, and you can make changes to the gift later. Let's say if you wanted to revise some things later, you can do that. I would implore you to try to make sure it is like solidly what you want to leave so that you don't have to go back to an attorney or make any changes yourself. But yeah, there are options to change it in the future.
Can it be a percentage?
Yes, yes it may.
So you don't have to specify a certain dollar amount?
No, we try, if you have any way to tell, or if you have at least an inkling as to about what the estimated value might be of that percentage, we'd love to know, but it is not, we're not going to hunt you down for it. It's not anything that we need to know, but a percentage is wonderful. That's good enough. Any other questions related to Pet Guardian program, Legacy Society, anything of the sort? Anybody want to know my favorite color? Okay. Any more questions for Susan, for Ben? Anything out there? Going once?
Well, thank
Going
you
twice?
all.
Thank you all
Thank
very,
you.
very much.
Yeah,
thank you so
thank you
much for
very
coming
much.
out today. We'll be around if you have any other little more personal questions. We'll be around and we can always sit and chat. But again, thank you. And thank you to the both of you. Thank you very much.